Are you plain bored of woodworking? Get excited again with Fisheye's Make Your Own Sandpaper Kit. Fisheye's Sandpaper Kit comes with everything you see here. Just pick your paper, spread the glue, and shake on the sand. Voila! Beautiful handcrafted sandpaper. And if you act now, we'll include candy sprinkles absolutely free. What better way to say I love you than with a gift of sandpaper? Fisheye's Make Your Own Sandpaper Kit is just $19.99 wherever crappy gifts are sold.
We are broadcasting to you from the Crystal Gondola in the palatial main studios of Brant Aerials in the beautiful Fairfield Plain on the outskirts of Burford, Ontario in Brant County, Canada, for the education, elucidation, emancipation, enlightenment and mental emolument of the hoi polloi. Keeping in touch.
Thank you. Oh boy. Thank you very much. It's March the 14th, 2024. We've got something very special for you tonight, something really different for In Touch. But before we get started, let me introduce my long-suffering co-host, Mr. Jim Beauchart.
Yay, boo.
How are you doing there, Jim?
Well, Gary, I chipped the nail today and I was going to file for workman's comp, but since I only got 1 day left of work, I said, I'll tough it out.
You were going to file your nail for workman's comp?
No, file a workman's comp claim.
Oh, I thought you were going to file your nail because it was a broken nail.
It really hurts.
Tough life. We have some sad news to report today. Our hearts are broken for Lloyd Mendenhall on the loss of his wife Judy. Every time I saw Lloyd late in a chat on a live stream, I would always say, "Good night, Lloyd. Say good night to Judy for us." So, Lloyd, if you're watching, say good night one last time for me. Okay. Enough of that. Tonight's guest is Stephanie and Teo from Slaman's Quality Flowers. In the intro, you saw a flyover that I did. It was 19 flights. Was it 19? Yeah, something like that. 19 flights over to watch their construction. But without further ado, let me introduce to you Stephanie and Teo Slaman.
Yay! Woo!
How are you doing, guys?
Yeah, good. Happy to be here.
Oh, that's good. I had all kinds of questions, and we talked about them, but I just wanted to briefly tell us a little bit about Slamans. They started in 1969.
Yeah, well, I can take this one. I'll start with myself. So I'm Stephanie Slaman. I'm the eldest of Brian's kids who, with my brother Teo, are now part of the third generation of management and owner operations of our legal name is John Slaman Greenhouses Limited, and then our branded name is Slaman's Quality Flowers. So yeah, exactly as you said, started by my grandfather in 1969 in Burford. So we have 2 sites now, a mere just over 50 years later. And we're quite excited to be, running this new facility that really speaks to the way the industry has changed, the technology that's now employed in controlled environment agriculture, the incredible amount of work that the management's put in, that the teams put in, that we have great partners like yourself putting in amazing aspects that lead to that incredible intro. Every time I see the intro, that video that you shared with us ages ago now, it feels, but every time you're seeing the project from beginning to end, you really like, holy smokes. Teo and I walk around there now almost every day. Teo more often than I, because he's in charge of the growing and operations. I get to do the paperwork. So I grow the paperwork, Teo grows the flowers. But yeah, it's been quite a journey. So I'm also working as a economic development specialist. So I get to work with small businesses every day as well in that other role. And every business has some of the same challenges, but is so completely individually unique. And when you get to talk to owners and operators and hear the passion from their side, I'm sure you're going to hear it from Teo and I tonight. Gary, hearing you talk about drones is exactly the same thing. You light up, and you know what? This is the stuff that lights us up. So at our greenhouse, we are now just under 300,000 square feet of enclosed glass greenhouses. We grow 2 different product lines, Lisianthus and chrysanthemums. So some of those beautiful products, all of it cut flowers, you can see behind Gary there on his screen. If you go to our website, which is slamans.ca, SLAMANS.ca, you can see some really great close-ups of some of those products as well. And then we're rushing real fast towards Mother's Day, so the greenhouse is full. Really excited for that. And then maybe I'll turn it over to Teo to talk about some of the project from his perspective and the focus that he has in his role.
Take it away, Teo. Is he there? He's working.
So sorry, guys. My internet is really, really choppy. I'm just putting it in the chat now.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to have to actually go back to the greenhouses to get some better internet service. So if I can sign off and then sign back on again in 2 minutes, that's about how close I live. So I can quickly join again with better internet in just a few minutes.
You live right over there.
Right. Then what I can do is I can dive into a little bit of the family history as Teo steps away for a minute, and then he can get back with some of his side of things.
Yeah, perfect. Good stuff. Yep. Let's do that. I'll take Teo out. There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's never a live event with something going a little bit sideways, huh?
No, that's right. Oh, hey, you haven't seen it go sideways yet. When I start pushing buttons, things go crazy, you know.
Good.
Now, if you just give me a second, we'd like to say hello to some of the people that are in the chat here with us. Mike from Texas, our drone guy. Warren Akarasho's here. Frank Rizzo, thank you so much for the update. John Flynn, how's things in Michigan? Jim's droning in Port Credit. Dewey, all the way from Ireland. Who am I missing?
Oh, everybody.
Oh, Dominic from Australia. And, Dre's here. Recovery
Lambo,
One drone. Lambo's here. Don's here? Okay, yeah. Good stuff. Lauren from Calgary. And who am I missing? We're good?
Yeah, I think that's about it.
Yeah. Again, for those joining us late, our condolences to Lloyd on the loss of Judy. It's a tough day for Lloyd. And
Teo back?
No, he's still there.
Oh, that's the frozen one.
Yeah. Let me get rid of that. There we go. So, what's your plan for the future? Is there going to be more expansion at Slamans, or?
Well, how about I answer that with a little bit of how far we've come, and then definitely that next step. So our family and this business started with my great-grandparents emigrating to Canada after the war from the Netherlands, and they settled just a little bit away from where we are now in Brantford. So my great-grandfather had a greenhouse there, a small greenhouse that they were able to bring out of the Netherlands in the post-World War II era. They were able to bring building materials, but not much liquid capital with them. So they brought the materials for their first greenhouse and located in Brantford. And my grandfather and his brother operated that greenhouse for a little while before my grandfather went out on his own. And started John Slaman greenhouses in Burford. So we found a perfect parcel of land a little bit outside of the downtown core of very small township Burford at the time.
Up on the 7th concession there.
Yeah, just at the start of the seventh concession there. Yeah. So way back when he would be out at a family event and they would look at the sky and be like, oh, the weather's changing. We got to drive back home, close the windows manually. Everything was done with the same care and attention, just instead of on a computer, on your phone, wherever you are, actually manually doing all the pieces, turning the knobs, changing over the elements. So from there, my grandfather did a number of expansions starting in 1969 with one house at a time. And then in 1987, my dad, Brian, and then my uncle Mike, 2 of John's 5 children, joined the family business as well. And then Mike and Mike and Brian proceeded to do a number of other expansions as well. And the last one just 1990, and that's when we moved into our second product line, Lisianthus. So we started with chrysanthemums, and we propagate those in-house as well. And then now we have added Lisianthus. So in 2012, Brian and Mike split the business, and Mike went on his own, and my dad, Brian, has been running the business solo since then, until he started talking about maybe wanting to retire. I don't know if that'll ever happen, because if he's going to retire the same way my grandfather retires, John still does quality control surveillance throughout the greenhouse. So he comes by for 10 o'clock coffee break and will let us know all the things that we could be doing better, and helping to steward some of the growing and the great family feel that our company still contains. So then we started this project. And as you can see, it was the biggest expansion our company ever took at one time. It coincided with our succession planning with Brian. So bringing on Teo and myself as formal next generation of management. And it looks like Teo is in the greenhouse again.
Yeah, he's right. He's right in there. He's not in his office. He's right on. He's right on the job.
Yeah. So we'll give him another couple seconds to set that up as I kind of finish off where we went. So with this last build, which was double our original footprint. So the first site in Burford, which is still our original site, still some of the original warehousing, but most of the greenhouse itself is from the 70s now, the later 70s and the 80s and onwards now. But we went from 150,000 square feet at that site, and then we built another 150,000 square feet. So now we're just under 300,000 square feet. And it was a lot to take on at once.
Oh, yeah.
But it's been an adventure. And we're really excited to be where we are today. So yeah, it was interesting road, but we started with, as my grandfather likes to say always, a really good quality product that people enjoy, people want, that really brings smiles to people's faces, and you can be that extra expression of love or care or just thinking of you at some times in people's lives that are the happiest, and with weddings or birthdays or other special events, and times of comfort too. So it's really fantastic to be part of this industry. The floriculture industry is a really, really cool one to be part of. So yeah, I think from there we're hoping to just continue growing. So this site we're on with the new facility is 40 acres. So we can expand quite a lot still. And that's the future plan for Teo and I, to see where we go with not just these two product lines, but maybe, who knows what happens with markets in the future. So we're continuing to look out for opportunities and see where that takes us as far as, our excellence in growing right now.
Oh, good stuff. Now here's an interesting story, and Jim will appreciate this story because this is right up Jim's line. There's two guys were in a florist, right? And the one guy says to the other guy, he says, he says, you spend a lot of money, right? And eventually they just wither and die. And the other guy says, yeah, but you still have to buy them flowers.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's safe to say a family that grows together grows together.
Yeah. 3 generations now. And, I have a little daughter, so maybe the 4th generation in training.
Oh, there you go. And Teo's back. He's in the control center there.
He is.
Yeah. Looks like he hasn't got much better internet there than he had at the house.
Yeah, a little frozen there too.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now the other one says device is not connected, so I can't add that one. Yeah.
So is it connected?
Now did you guys get? Oh, there you go. He's kind of pixelated, but he's good. Did you get fiber at the greenhouse? Your internet connection, is it fiber?
I don't think we're quite hooked up yet.
Yeah.
We're still waiting.
You're still waiting
For fiber internet.
Yeah, me too. It's a constant fight. Been waiting for over a year. But yeah. We've had Warren has joined us from Connecticut, drone shots from Michigan. I see Peter Carroll from Australia has joined us in the chat. Hot Rod from Daytona. Yep. And Art from Colorado. So we got quite a following going on here. Let me just do a refresh on that. Yeah, good stuff. If you like what you see, hit the like button. We're not shy to ask. Yeah, so we're not getting too much from Teo. Now, in the greenhouse, when we toured the other day, there's what you call houses. Each little section of the greenhouse is a house, right?
Yeah, so we it will start at kind of the macro level. So you saw that overview of the greenhouse, and it's one big square. So that square in the production zone gets split into 4, and there's 4 growing zones. And then, each of those peaks that you saw, because it's a little triangle, each of those peaks is a house. So then within each of those houses, or with each of those 4 growing zones is 5 houses. So, or 10. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
For 10 years.
I wonder if I can get I'm just going to try and see if I can share this again.
Sure. I can speak a little bit to some of the technology in there, because it's actually pretty cool. So we had that one short shot at the very end of the video where you saw the small plants in the ground and a lot of structure around them. So all of that is now automated. So it all raises automatically, and it's all based on computer systems for the control of the environment and the inputs. So watering, fertilizing, the light accumulation. We can either, shade curtains for if the light's too much, or add lighting if the light's too little naturally. And that helps us to ensure that the plants are growing in an optimal climate. And then we're manipulating the genetics of the plant for what the market wants at the end, right? So a small plant with beautiful blooms vibrant colors and has some longevity and will meet that that need from the florist and then eventually the end consumer.
Okay. Let me just, I'm going to share this.
So you're messing with Mother Nature a little bit.
A little bit. Well, Mother Nature perfected it, and then we just do our best to mimic Mother Nature within the confines of the greenhouse. Is that pretty reasonable to say, Teo?
Yeah. So, for example, I think part of my internet troubles today is the rain outside. So we've got 20 growing zones, and currently 4 of those are flowering. So if our flowers were exposed to the rain, in nature, what would happen is that would force the pollination to spread, and that would force the flower to drop its seedlings, and then it would force the flower to reproduce, as that we naturally get more rain in September, October. Whereas for us, we want to maintain the flower structure and shape. So we don't want overhead watering or rain on our plants. And that's where the glass and the greenhouse effect comes into play. So yeah, it's, Mother Nature does a great job at what she did originally, but we're trying to produce it more for the customers, right? We don't want to necessarily reproduce plants in the same spot. We want to actually market them and get them out onto your tabletops.
Yeah. Well, nature does a good job as long as you're in the right climate, right? So you've got a controlled climate, so you can do this year round, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
What I found interesting was the mesh that's on the floor that raises up to keep all the stems straight. That just blew my mind.
Right. So naturally, Lisianthus naturally occurring, they're a desert plant, so they'll actually grow very low along the floor of the desert to try and stay away from direct sunlight, and then it sprouts up little shoots every so often, but it's a horizontally growing plant naturally. So what we do is we need to support that flower growing straight and tall and level. So to do that, when it's a young plant, only about an inch or two tall, it's self-supporting and that's fine. But as this flower begins to grow taller, eventually it would lay down naturally. So we use what's called a net lift support structure, and that's small pieces of wire. They're about 14, 16 gauge wire that are all put together in squares that are 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters. So imagine 1 million of these squares and then 1 plant per square. And then as the flowers get taller, they start to lean, and then the net catches them and allows them to keep growing straight.
That's 10 centimeters.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Yeah. So enough to hold a flower completely straight and square the whole lifetime.
Wow. Yeah. Now, and they automatically go up?
Yeah, it's a semi-automated system. So back at our home farm, the way that it's operated is with pulley ropes. So as you want it to go higher, you have to manually adjust these ropes. So it's not fully automated, but it is very, very semi-automated to the point where all I have to do is push a button. So I push a button and I can raise 40,000 plants at one time.
Wow.
So it's about 5,000 square feet of greenhouse area, and 40,000 plants all get corrected and lifted up all at once. So I can raise the full greenhouse of 108,000 square feet in roughly 5 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, that must have been a chore before all that mechanism.
It was. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, when I was there last week, I noticed a little weather station up on the east side.
Yep.
Now, you monitor weather there and that?
Yep. The weather station looks at outdoor temperature, outdoor light intensity, which we can then determine accumulation throughout the day based off of light intensity per half-hour increment. Okay. And then we also look at wind direction as well as wind speed, because that's very important for our ventilation capacity. Okay. So the structure is a 2-peak Venlo, and it has vents on either side of the peak. So we can actually tilt those vents different directions and different percentages based off of wind speed to get optimal efficiency and effectiveness of ventilation within the greenhouse. Okay. So wind speed direction is very important. Outdoor temperature also proportions how much that wind actually moves and how aggressive the heating system needs to be operating or not. And then light intensity works with our shade curtaining to either open the shades when it's daylight and I want to allow the sunlight into the greenhouse, or close the shades when the light intensity is too much and it would actually harm the flowers to protect them from overburnage. So,
cool.
The weather station is extremely critical.
Yeah. And it's just a little wee tiny thing sitting up there in the corner, right?
Yeah, it's important though. Yeah.
Yeah. I've got a weather station out back that measures wind speed, and out the side out here, I've got a windsock so I can tell
Right.
which way I got to fly so that I can get back.
Yeah. So we actually have graphing capabilities as well. So I can look at peak wind speeds up to. We were first operational with our Argus system in November of 2021. So I can actually go all the way back to November 2021 and start looking at things. And then Burford site data we have all the way back until we first installed that system in the mid 80s. So there's a significant amount of data that we have on our local weather. Because our crop is an 8 to 12 week crop, chrysanthemums are 8 and then lisianthus are closer to 12. You can't really reflect on data last year. You really have to grow in the moment. But I mean, for your business, if you know that March is much windier than April, it'd be interesting to look at those things specific to that region. So.
Yeah. What I found fascinating was the sterilization of the soil after you've grown a crop, right? You have to kill all that root stuff and basically you're steaming the soil, right? Now,
that's right. So we have a boiler, and the boiler does what you would expect. It boils water, and then when the water boils, it generates steam, and then steam typically gets to about 90 to 100, just over 100 degrees, right? That's where water's starting to actually boil. By the time it's actually out and in the greenhouses, it's closer to 80 or 90. So we have a steam sterilization boiler, and then a turbocharger on that boiler, which boosts the temperature even hotter to about 130, 140 degrees Celsius. And then we're putting that underneath a plastic enclosure within the greenhouse. So think a greenhouse inside a greenhouse, and we're injecting this sterilization method, this steaming, into an enclosure, which then inflates like a balloon. And then underneath that inflated balloon, we have our soil, which is then being sterilized. And any insects, any pathogens that are in that enclosure are being sterilized for the next crop. So we harvest the product out of the greenhouse, we cut the flowers, that's why they're called cut flowers. And then we sterilize that growing zone, and then we can replant with young baby plants in the same square footage. And that process takes roughly 12 to 20 hours. And then by then it's cool enough and it's ready to be planted again. So within about 24 hours, we can replant a house.
Cool.
So that helps kill all the bugs, so there's no need for any kind of pesticides?
Yeah, so we do still use pesticides in an integrated pest management program. So we're not just vast spraying throughout the greenhouse, just, quote unquote, nuking the place just to sterilize everything. It's specifically targeted for the type of insect we want to control, as well as the localization of where that insect is. So we're scouting weekly throughout the entire crop on both farms. And then we're spot applying our products to control the pest. But we do use beneficial insects as well. So we have the good bugs that help to control the bad bugs. So unfortunately, those good bugs, those do get sterilized and eliminated in the steaming process as well. But that's the nature of rotating a crop. You can't keep the good things without getting rid of the bad ones.
Collateral damage.
You can't put up a sign and say all good bugs leave?
Yeah, I tried to evict them, and they like the soil as good as the bad ones. So yeah, that doesn't work too well. Yeah.
Wow, that's great. Now, you've also got that great big water tank outside that's all insulated. That is for indoor heat?
Yeah, so it's appropriately named our hot water storage tank. So what that does is it stores hot water, and that's how our greenhouse is heated. So when the boiler is operating for steam sterilization, the primary function is to sterilize the soil. So the majority of the energy that we're putting into that boiler is going into the ground to sterilize the ground. When our cogeneration unit is operational, running to produce light, like for example, if I was out in the greenhouse, you'd see the lights were on. And if you were outside, you'd see that it's rainy and dark. So these flowers want to be lit, and the outside natural environment is not providing that. So we're providing that artificially. And then the byproduct of that lighting is actually heat, because we're running an engine to generate electricity. And then the byproduct of that engine becoming warm is warm water. So on a mild evening like today, where if I check the climate computer, we're probably at 16 to 18 degrees Celsius outside. We don't need the heat right now, but we are going to need it later on in the evening as the temperature continues to drop. And based off the crop timing right now, the generator is actually running 24 hours a day. But there's some points where we're not running 24 hours a day. So if I have the generator turn off at a point where I don't need the light, but I do need the heat, we need a way to be able to effectively store that heat. So that's where the hot water storage tank comes into play, where I can efficiently produce thermal capacity and then store that capacity for use at a later time. And our storage capacity on this farm is 1 million liters. That's enough capacity to heat this greenhouse without mechanical interventions, without reheating the water, for up to about 5 days if I have the shades closed and I go into heat protection mode. So it's actually a bit of an insurance policy too. If we had our generator break, we'd be without light, but we wouldn't be without heat. If our steam sterilization unit, which can be used to generate heat, if that were to malfunction and go down, we still would have a bit of time to figure out the mechanical issues, repair the systems, and get back online. And we wouldn't worry about freezing out, so to speak. So in the middle of winter, that hot water storage tank is an extremely important part of our business as well.
Yeah, cool. Wow. So like, to me, it's just so much technology, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're looking at there's 20 or 30 different systems that work completely independently necessary, but all together in the system they're extremely valuable. But a key element to this is that yes, we did a lot all at once, but we knew all these things from 50 years of growing back in Burford. So when my grandfather first started the business, like Stephanie was mentioning earlier, we'd have to leave a family event because we saw it was raining over in Burford. We had to go close events. Now a computer does that for me. I knew I had to install that computer at this Fairfield location, but I knew that because of the experience we had back in Fairfield in the 50 years within this industry. So it was, yes, there's a lot going on here, but there's been a lot going on in this industry for a long time. And we just took all those lessons over time and we understood how to build it based off the experience we built back at the home farm.
And packed it all into this new facility, eh?
That's right. Yeah.
Now you've got about 30 people working there now too, eh?
Yeah. So it's between the two sites as well as our temporary farm worker crew. So yeah, the total business is between 30 and 35 people. So we do employ a significant amount of individuals for sure. Yeah.
No, that's good. That's cool. Yeah.
If you need somebody to operate the automatic sprinkler, I can do that.
Yeah, so you'd be my assistant to the assistant grower when that gets put in place.
And I think the actual task is just making sure the computer's got it set to go at the right time.
Absolutely. It's initiating a button. So I'm sure you're more than qualified.
I can now you're watering, you're collecting rainwater too, eh? That's the big tank that's on the inside, right? There's that.
Right. Yep. So one of the hard lessons we learned back at the Burford home farm was that when you have a rainwater storage collection tank outside, you need to actually cover or control the algae that will grow in that tank. When you drive by an irrigation pond outside, there's a couple things that are adding to that pond getting a bit gunky, right? It's either the natural conditions of the pond, if you have fish in the pond, organic material in the pond, what else is happening there? So a rainwater storage tank, it will naturally produce algae just based off the sunlight, agitating the growing environment and promoting algae to grow. Another element is, when you look at a pond, it has a lot of organic waste in there. With a rainwater storage tank, you can build it clean, but here in southwestern Ontario, we have a lot of trees, and those trees shed leaves every fall, and those leaves will fall into your tank, and that creates more ability for fungus and pathogens to grow. So one of the lessons we learned at our Burford farm, which does have an outdoor rainwater storage tank, is to actually bring that storage tank inside our warehouse. That means it's controlled, it's weather protected, it's sunlight protected, and there's no chance of any contaminants getting inside of it.
Yeah. Well, the only contaminant you get is bird poop that's on the glass.
Yeah, that's true. But that ends up being fertilizer, so I'm not too worried. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
Did we explain how that rainwater is captured? I don't know if the
audience understood the details, but it is relatively interesting. So the entire building square footage here is 142,000 square feet. So it's a large footprint, and that gives us a significant amount of water. If you get 1 inch of rainfall, that's 1 inch per square foot, I think it is. So that's quite a bit of water. So our entire building, it's 140,000 square feet, and it's all sloped one way, 6 inches. So over the entire square footage, everything's moving to one side, and then we have recirculation pipes that actually collect that water, bring it into a cistern, and then pumps it back inside the building. Any overflow goes into our stormwater management pond, and then it's efficiently managed at that point back into the local aquifers. But anything that we need for our own internal watering capacity and equipment use, yeah, we can recirculate from our own superstructure.
Yeah. Now that aquifer is what feeds my well. Thank you.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. We just give it right back to you. And I mean, that's where we look at, responsible stewardship of the land, because we're not pumping that water off site. We're not distributing it in other ways. It's all recirculated internally here, and it goes right back into the exact land we built on. I mean, we moved it from one location of that ground to another, but it's still getting back in the soil overall. So.
Yeah, I think your greenhouse is about 300 meters from my house.
Yeah, probably pretty close to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So for those watching, I was able to do some of the flying directly from my backyard. I like to be on site when people were there so that they weren't distracted by the drone or thinking they were being spied on. But, I always made an effort to go down there with the hard hat and the vest and and do all the good stuff and safety shoes. I had it all down, quite industrious.
Yes.
When you had the hard hat on, Gary, I thought you were joining the village people.
I still have the hard hat. It says Brant Aerials and it's got my name on it and all that stuff. So no, that was good. Harvesting. Now that's a real task too, eh?
Yeah. Yeah, it's so one of the elements of the net lift system, it gets a little bit in depth, but you can imagine when we're supporting 40,000 plants at one time, it's a significant amount of crop loading. So we have what's called mini trusses that span across the greenhouse house and then are connected to every single post the length of the greenhouse. There's about 11 of these little mini barriers you have to step over as you walk down the crop. So one of the more efficient ways to harvest is not actually to walk up and down the main walkway, but to have a transport carrier belt to a harvesting machine in the main walkway. So think of it as a really long conveyor. It's 50 meters long. And what the workers have to do is they cut the flowers to grade, they lift them up, they put them onto a belt, they let them go, and then the belt shoots them, hands go this way. It shoots them to the front, the middle of the greenhouse. And then from there, we bunch them, we double check the grading, and then we put it into a pail ready to ship after we go through a cooling process.
Yeah, because when they get to the center, to the aisle, then the roots are all cut off and disposed of there, and then they put the little wrapper on them. And
So the quality control grading happens in the bench way first, and then the machine does more of the mechanical processing. But we still have that human element where we still want to get our hands and our eyes on the product to make sure that nothing was mechanically destroyed or damaged, and that we're still sending out premium quality product. So still that human element for sure. The equipment just helps to make that more efficient and effective overall. So and less time consuming, because it's very time consuming walking 50 meters per bunch. So the harvester belt helps to eliminate some of that.
Yeah. And this is entirely wholesale. There's no retail involved here, right?
Well, I can actually answer that question. It's a pretty interesting aspect to the floriculture industry. So there's actually, I think there's 3 auctions in Canada, wholesale auctions. And then I know of a significant one in California, but there may be another one in Florida. I don't know if it runs on the same auction principle. But it's a Dutch style auction. So the most prominent one is in Amsterdam and very well known, and you can tour it as a tourism piece because it's quite cool to see. So we sell the majority of our stuff completely wholesale through wholesale distributors. One of these distributors is the Ontario auction or clock, and then another of the distributors is the Montreal auction or clock. So a wholesale distributor is going to work the same as wholesale distributors for any other product or commodity. So they're taking a bulk purchase of our product, and then they're selling to smaller retail outlets on a designated route. So our market for our product, you can find our product in most of the eastern provinces here. So Ontario and moving east, Quebec and into the Atlantic provinces, and then into the northeastern seaboard US for a smaller piece of that market through some of our partner distributors that go south into the US market. So those clocks work instead of walking in and going to like say an auction house for cattle or something like that, where it starts at a price and it goes up and it goes up and it goes up and eventually somebody's the highest bidder. This works a little bit more similar to like clothing retail. It's at a set price, and then if nobody buys it at that price, it starts coming down and starts coming down, and then somebody buys it and it bounces back up a little bit, and then it'll start coming down, and then somebody buys it. But if you don't buy what you want, and then the grower has set a price, it might be gone. So there's a little bit of this element of incentivized urgency that's developed into the process. So if you get colors you want, you might end up paying a premium to ensure that you get those colors. So you think of, brides who are very particular in the color and how many they need. We've found a way as an entire industry to incentivize the selling pieces along the way to work within the structure of having a perishable product. We have a flower that's in bloom at this particular time. We can manipulate it in a couple different ways for it to last as long as possible and ensure that consumer is able to enjoy it. But there's only so much that can be done. And at a certain point, nature takes its course and that flower will wilt and die. So there's elements that have been built into the whole value chain and supply chain to ensure that we move these products quickly and efficiently. And when you think of how quickly Amazon can get something from their warehouse to your door, we came up with that first, working with perishable floral products. So it's definitely really interesting when you think of the number of businesses that are working through our supply chain, ensuring that when you walk into a florist or your local grocer, you're getting a product that's really only a few days old and cut out of a greenhouse or another grower's field, and now it's in your hands and for your
and refrigerated the whole time.
Exactly. Cold chain. That's a really good point, Gary. That's something that
Theo made me turn up the air conditioner for the big trip from the greenhouse to my house. So
yeah.
Put the temperature probe in his car and made sure it was suitable.
Good. Yeah.
Stephanie, when we were talking about brides being very picky, my first three were really, really picky.
I don't know if I can comment on that, Jem. I've spent a few minutes with you and
Oh man. Now somebody was asking if you need a permit to collect rainwater.
No, it's all internal use. We're not selling this for potable water usage. So for the toilet facilities, I mean, that's not potable, hopefully. But typically the water goes into our sinks. That's totally potable. It comes from the ground. It's tested. It's approved. That's no problem. So rainwater you can use and recirculate on your own property completely permit free, so long as it's not for potable use. If it's for potable use, which is drinking or consuming or showering or any way you can get in and around your eyes, mouth, ears, all that kind of stuff, then you need to have a permit. It has to be inspected. It needs to be regulated. Other than that, for our use, because it's going right back onto our plants, there's no permitting or reporting required. There is some regulations around greenhouses and environmental control, which Stephanie can speak to, but it's not around the use of the rainwater itself. It's around the management of the overall greenhouse operation. So that one goes off to Stephanie.
And any of the excess goes into the ground, into the aquifer, and I use it.
Well, and that's part of, we have to report on that we're managing that appropriately and effectively. But as far as a permit to use it, no, there's no permit to use or recirculate the water. It's just because we're a greenhouse, we have to make sure that we're managing our stormwater properly, and that's the more important part. Is what we do.
Okay, yeah.
Well, so that's good. One of the reasons I don't know if that was your question, Gary, or maybe one of the viewers, but there is permits for drawing water out of an aquifer or a stream or a pond, and that is maybe where there might have been some confusion. So same as nobody's out in the middle of a wheat field trying to measure how much water that wheat is consuming from the rain. It's a similar principle. It's landing as if it were to land on the ground. It's just landing on our roof and we're capturing it. If we were drawing that out of one of the natural water cycles and systems, then that's where there would be that requirement for measurement and permitting and access and things. So it's one of the ways that we ensure we're using all of our inputs in the most efficient and sustainable way, and ensuring that we're not only meeting the best practices of our industry, but also thinking about, you know, the concept of wanting to be good stewards, good neighbors, knowing that we're practicing and utilizing our industry knowledge to the betterment of our plants, but also the environment as a whole.
Yeah. Now, somebody has suggested that it being a greenhouse, you should turn your fans the other way so that you don't produce greenhouse gases, you see?
Yeah, I love that analogy. It's
don't release the greenhouse gas.
If I could reverse greenhouse gases, man, I'd be a millionaire. Yeah, it's an interesting effect. So when you look at the term greenhouse gas, it's related to the ozone and how the ozone actually responds the same way a greenhouse does. So so exactly like that. So if we have the sun beaming down on our greenhouse and it's January and it's very, very bright, but it's -5 outside, that's actually more thermally effective than a cold October day where it's a light drizzly rain, but it's 10 degrees outside. And we're actually not burning fuel, not consuming power, not emitting carbon emissions or greenhouse gases from our greenhouse, depending on if our greenhouse is working like a greenhouse should. So in that cold, drizzly October day, we have to spend a bit of fuel to produce the products that we produce. That's the nature of growing in Canada, absolutely. But in that bright, sunny January day, well, that's where the greenhouse gases work in our favor. That's where the sun's beaming in, it's bouncing, reflecting off the glass. We're retaining that heat, we're retaining that energy, and it's going to our benefit to utilize the plants and to save power and efficiency and all those things.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah. I do love that analogy. You did throw it back and say, well, we're all living in a greenhouse, right? Just depends on how far you zoom out. So,
suck the greenhouse gas in. Now, do you have any concerns about light pollution? I haven't noticed anything here.
We actually did a really interesting study, because that is something that as a broader industry, I do see that question. I can divert really quickly. We don't actually have the option of using solar or other more climate friendly or classified renewable energies at this time on our current site, but it's something that we always consider and review our energy usage and opportunities.
So I can speak to that quickly. There is some research being done in transparent photovoltaic panels for greenhouses.
Oh, yeah?
Issue is storage, because when the sun's shining, I don't need the power, I don't need the light, right? When the sun's shining, that's where you're generating electricity. So I'm watching very closely battery storage. If I had the capacity to store electricity efficiently and effectively, I'd be all over that. The same way we store our thermal capacity. If we had an electrical storage power facility, I'd put up these translucent panels, which are still in like very low development. I'm keeping an eye on it, but it's not marketable yet. You could reskin your whole greenhouse with that. You could actually collect the energy and the sun shining and then reuse that energy at night. The problem is the storage and using it 12 to 14 hours later. That's the issue right now. So it's an opportunity, but it's not something we're looking at right now, because we need that instant recoverable electricity when there are no other sources. You think about nighttime, typically there's not much wind. There's definitely no sun. So renewables, I mean, if I had a waterfall right beside me, we'd be all over that as well. But typically renewables, it's all about storage. And that's what the capacity just isn't there right now commercially.
No, that's good. That's good. There was something that stuck in my brain, but I can't remember what it was, because it comes and goes real quick. We were talking about the light pollution thing.
So we did a really interesting project where we were one of the greenhouses surveyed as part of an industry investigation into light pollution. So there are various greenhouses that, for the requirement of the plants that they're growing, they didn't previously require curtaining. Our particular plant lines do require curtaining. They didn't necessarily have that mechanical feature in their greenhouses. So if they were running lights at night, when the natural environment is dark, it can be very bright. So as an industry, that's something that's being faced by greenhouses. We always had curtaining throughout our greenhouses as part of the product line that we grow, because it requires us to be able to manipulate completely the light accumulation that is received by the plants, or to create or mimic a Mother Nature's seasonal change of longer days and then shorter days, which would trigger the plant's natural genetics to bloom. So that's something that we've had the ability within our greenhouse to manage, is the light seepage from any of our lights or other mechanics. But in Ontario, the Ontario Ministry of Food and Rural Affairs was doing a study where they utilized drones to help measure light seepage from greenhouses at various different stages of curtaining, to help look at the efficacy of different mechanical features within greenhouses to manage that light seepage. So we were one of those greenhouses that they came to look at. And so they measured both facilities. They measured on our home farm in Burford, looking at some of the mechanics of that greenhouse are, as I said, originally built in the 70s. We've, maintained and added upgrades where we can. And then our greenhouse here in Fairfield, the one that is part of the video, and that one built in 2021 with all of the available technology and commercial products at the time that it was built. And both greenhouses were seen to have the same efficacy for managing light. And when fully curtained, so at full light management, had less reflective light than the moon hitting our windows. So we are able to almost 100% manage any light seepage from any of our production areas.
That's cool. That's really good. Now, the thought that escaped me was solar. You can use solar to power your new Cybertrucks.
Oh, we're buying Cybertrucks? How many flowers can those transport?
None.
Yeah, I was going to say, depending on which article you're reading in the newspaper, they can't transport much.
Yeah, the cap is big enough on them.
Now, what's the big one that Tesla has now for transport trucks? What's their
Sure.
cyber
Is it
cyber semi or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's all. Now, speaking of solar, right next door to you, the house that was there, they had a huge solar facility and they took it out. So I don't know. I don't know what that was all about.
Not too sure about that, but some of those installations are hitting either their half-life or their full life, and sometimes it's just a natural it's a life cycle, right? Everything has a life cycle. Could be a couple different reasons, but I don't know personally.
Well, they sold the house, right? And the new people moved in and took the solar out. So I don't know.
Might have happened reverse. Maybe the old owners took the solar with them. I'm not sure.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think we're now just turning into rural gossips.
That's right.
Well, you'll get the hang of this channel real quick, Stephanie.
Yeah. I was gonna say Burford's a happening place. Like we got some stories we can share.
I tell you, I've been here since when did we move here? 92. So I've been here 32 years. And when I describe where I live, people say, "Oh, you live in the Bellis house. You live at Bellis's, right?" When did Brian build the place on Fairfield? When did your dad move to there?
You moved there in 1994.
Yeah.
94.
Yeah.
So I've been here longer than he has.
Probably. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. My house was built in 1860. It's a house of a million projects. There's always something. It never stops. But no, it was. I found that so much of it was just so fascinating. Watching it be built and and seeing it go up was just a I don't know. It was a thrill for me. It must have been just a nightmare for you with.
I think in the moment it was, but reflecting back, we're happy we got where we are. It was really cool to be able to see it from your perspective, like those views of just the top down, being able to see some of the components getting put in from the crews and those different points of view. It was really fantastic. Like, I'm so appreciative that we got kind of connected just before this project took off, because it was such a fantastic thing to have.
No, that's good. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Now, I gave you a hard drive with all the footage on it. Have you been going through any of that, or?
I have been. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little overwhelmed with how many files there are. I think we might have underpaid you for how much you've worked on this, Gary. Unless you were moonlighting on some of it, because there is hours of footage, it seems.
Well, yes.
I know the feeling of being underpaid, Stephanie. Gary.
Yeah.
No, you know what? It was a pleasure doing it, and at some point I'd like to get together and have a sit down and do a different kind of an interview that we can make into a legacy documentary for your family, and that I'd like to have as a gift for you. We've been neighbors for 30 years, and it'd be nice to be able to share that, if I could. So,
and maybe Netflix will pick it up and you can make some more coin.
I'm not gonna lie, there's a fantastic Canadian version of The Bachelorette that's all on Canadian farming families. So this could be the next level. We'll talk about Succession, but it'll be the Slaman greenhouse version.
Yeah.
Dynasty, I guess. Dynasty 2.
Yeah. Akarasho's asking, Warren from Connecticut is asking if I should do a fly through of the greenhouses, and I've flown in the greenhouses, and actually because they're glass, there's no interference with the GPS signal. You can fly through that greenhouse just like you were outdoors. There's a lot of wires and stuff that you got to keep your eye on. There's a lot of wire bracing that can get in the way, but
I've got a bit of a side story on that, Gary, because that's exactly it. One of the most interesting things, if anybody's had a chance to go to the website and see the picture of the home farm in Burford compared to the new farm side by side, greenhouse height has grown significantly, and it's exactly for all of those wires and guides and mechanical systems and the needed pieces. So from interaction with the local jurisdiction around planning and development, that was one of the biggest features is, well, tobacco greenhouses don't need to be that tall. What's going on with this? And it was, helping to explain all of the different required
the benefits and the reasons behind the additional height.
Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share this intro again, and let me just go share, and I'm going to turn this. So there we see. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the
so we're stripping topsoil.
Yeah, and here you can see the water tower, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't use my cursor on that, but this is sort of the beginning of, and there's the pad for the water tower.
And foundation wall for the warehouse. That's a conventional 12-inch foundation wall, and then for the actual greenhouse.
And okay, hold on. I'm gonna go back here. Let me just go back a second. Okay. Okay, right there, you can see at the bottom right. That's the planning where everybody sort of got together at that point. We're in the midst of COVID.
Bringing in all the contractors. Let's go. Let's get this thing underway. Let's keep moving forward.
Yeah. And what was the big crane for? What were they moving there?
That's just unloading materials. Every time that new material showed up on site, we had a crane on site to unload. If it was lighter materials, we could do it with zoom booms or skid steers. But for the majority of the project, we would have a crane on site and then dedicated delivery days where we could load.
So this is the first phase of the construction.
That's right. And the part that has the white framing right now, that's all powder coated galvanized. So galvanized first, then powder coated steel superstructure. And the portion that's mounted right now is all the warehouse area.
Okay. Yeah, this is warehouse here. This is the propagation area here, isn't it?
Correct. Yeah, where that orange zoom boom is, that's actually our propagation greenhouse. Yeah. And there's 2 houses like that. Yeah.
And this is where the boiler is?
On the north side, past the blue zoom boom, to the right of that hot water storage tank.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I can barely see your cursor there, so I'm trying to follow along.
Yeah. And this is the refrigeration area.
Correct. Yeah, 8,000 square feet of cold storage. Yep.
8,000 square feet of fridge. So if you ever get too hot in the summer, just go over and make yourself at home in there. You can set up a tent.
But don't bring apples and don't bring bananas because they'll actually excrete ethylene, and ethylene will help to reduce the shelf life of our product. So if you're coming in fruits and vegetables,
Interesting fact. My grandmother on my father's side would not allow a banana in the house.
There you go. She doesn't want the salad to go bad.
No, she didn't want that. She didn't like the smell. And my dad never got to eat a pickle until he was married. So.
There's a sound clip you want to get.
So here we can see the roof going on, and this is right over the refrigeration area, right?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this shows that actually showed an interesting point that we felt was worthwhile. If you look at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, you'll actually see a cutout in the concrete wall. So inside the cooler area, we have portion of our loading docks. So we have 2 of our 3 loading docks actually unload directly into our cooler. So
right into the cooler.
Yeah, okay. That's right. We're shipping out cold flowers. There's no reason to bring them out to a warm warehouse and then put them back into a cold truck. Okay. So our truck in the morning, we open up the overhead doors, we turn on our air sealers, and our truck becomes part of the cooler. And we can take as much time as we need loading up. There's no big rush to get the product out of the cooler into the truck and on the road.
Yeah. I saw somebody picking up flowers with a van one time when I was there. And he pulled up like to the warehouse door, and everything came out and then went into his refrigerated van. But it had that.
Yeah. There's all different types of loading that we'll do for our customers.
Yeah.
We like to load inside the building though, because if you do have a rainy day, the point where you're transporting the pails from the building into the van, if there's raindrops falling on the flowers, it'll actually damage them a little bit. Like I talked about earlier in the video with water and rain. So.
Yeah. Now, interesting. When I was watching them build this water tower, they built the roof first, then they built it layer by layer and just kept hoisting it up.
Yep, that's right.
So it's not like they start at the bottom and go up to the top. They start at the top and then just keep moving the top up higher. So it was, it was.
It's actually a relatively common way to build a lot of silos like that. It's the same way most grain storage silos are built. The difference with this, of course, is that it's welded steels, so that entire structure is completely welded together, not bolted together, because it does have to be watertight.
Okay, well, now let's go back here. There's the boiler. I missed the installation of the boiler, but
it wasn't that interesting. It was just me yelling again and getting stressed out.
Oh man! Now, why is there no floor next to the boiler over to the right of the boiler?
So most of the time, there are exceptions, but for example, in most residential construction, your contractor won't actually pour your garage floor or your basement floor until you have a roof on. And that's because the contractor doesn't want to take liability for starting the pour at 9 a.m. and then 12 p.m. there's rain and the floor is ruined. With exposed floors, it's very important, and our entire warehouse floor is completely exposed. So we opted to wait until we had a roof and an enclosed building before we poured concrete, and that worked out pretty good.
Okay. Now, in the very bottom of that picture, just to the left of the boiler, at the very bottom, there's a concrete box going down into the ground. Is that's power going from the
Correct.
power?
Yeah, that's the step up or step down transformer. So it's 27,000 volts on the road, and then we transfer that 27,000 volts from the road connection. So there's no transformer at the road. The transformer actually happens on our property in that vault. So we purchased the vault, but it's actually property of Hydro One. We're not allowed to play with it. We're not allowed to touch it. Yeah. That's what transfers down to 3-phase 600 volt, and then we use the 3-phase 600 inside of our building.
Now, if I stop right here, can you see my cursor up in the top left?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's my house. That's my house.
I don't know, Gary. The whole world knows where you live now, man.
That's all right. They're welcome to come. They're welcome to come and visit. They're all good people.
There you go.
Okay, here's the fly through for Warren.
Yeah.
I remember flying. Do you know how many drones I've had through that warehouse?
Well, I know you did a couple upgrades along the project, so I guess we were paying you pretty okay.
I did an upgrade, and then I had a drone stolen, and then I had one run over by a truck. So now I'm on my 4th drone. Okay.
Maybe if we could pause here, Gary. That's a good shot to show some of the things we were talking about with the automatic net lift and some of the the CO2 lines and the water lines, and then the heating.
Yeah. So you can see the little wires there in the ground. I don't know. I should get a bigger cursor. How come I can't get a bigger cursor?
That guy Jim on that.
Yeah. Jim, order me a bigger cursor.
Go to your settings.
Yeah, that's our net lift system. So we plant the flowers when they're quite small. They're only about an inch and a half tall. So these flowers here have been planted for about 3 weeks. And there's irrigation lines, there's CO2 and heating pipes, as well as the actual net lift structure and crop supporting wire.
Now you see the big pipe here is the steam going in to that area that has the plastic over it, right?
The plastic enclosure. Yeah. So that kind of shows a bit of the crop rotation. So we have the older crop further in the picture, and then a steamed house, and then a younger crop that was just planted. Yeah.
And there's the entire finished product right there.
Yeah.
And you can see the one growing section in the lower right, that's got some venting open as well. So you can see how that works as its own. Yeah.
Yeah. And you got to close that up when they're doing corn down at Mike's place, right?
Yeah, we do keep an eye on that. Yeah, if there's ever any corn processing happening, any corn heating, there's a bit of an excrement that comes off the corn husk, and we want to make sure that that's closed out of the greenhouse.
Yeah. So, and this is a sunrise shot.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's the eclipse.
Oh, that's the eclipse. Yeah. Don't we wish? Yeah. So that was. There we go. All right. So we don't need to see that anymore. How do I get out of there? I'm on the wrong screen. Boop. There we go. Yeah. So we've run over. That's good. We had lots to talk about. Anybody got any other questions you see there?
I think there was a question about the facility cost to build. So it was pretty significant, and
our entire lifetime.
Yeah.
Cost to build.
Yeah. So Teo and I have signed up for our whole career with the cost of that build.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
$100 a month for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Eventually.
You wish.
I might need 2 lifetimes at that price.
Yeah.
Oh, Warren's in Ohio. He's not in Connecticut. Why did I think Warren was in Ohio?
Yeah.
Or in Connecticut, anyway.
Did we use an engineer? Yes, we actually worked with 2 different engineering firms, as well as our construction builder has their own engineering department. So we have quite a few engineers that have helped to facilitate this project.
It was the Prinz Greenhouses were the main contractor, right?
Yeah, Prinz Greenhouse was the primary subcontractor responsible for the superstructure, and all of their prefabricated components come pre-engineered from Europe for design standards within Canada.
Very good. Good stuff.
Yeah, we actually worked with a couple other really good local vendors too, Teo, if you wanted to do any shout outs.
Yeah, there's a long list.
Yeah.
There's Cahoon Engineering, there's Perry's Contracting.
Okay.
Verhoof Electrical, JB Controls, Harrison Mechanical. They're local to us, actually. Harrison Mechanical is just down the road. They're in Harley. And Dick Aronson, he's the owner of that company. And he's been welding for us for a long, long time. So they're actually the contractor that welded all the pipes together. They welded that big tank. And that's actually an interesting story too. We decided we were going to work with Dick Aronson from Aronson Mechanical before we even started the project. He was our guy, and he was going to do this job for us. So when we first initially started negotiating with the primary subcontractor, Prinz, about who's going to do the welding, I said, well, I already have a guy, so it's non-negotiable. And they said, well, we also have a guy, and we really want to use him. He's the best in the business. We stand by his work, and we kind of don't want to work with anyone else. I said, unfortunately, we're not negotiating this. Dick Aronson will be doing the mechanical welding. And they said, oh, perfect, that's our guy. So, done. Yeah.
Ooh, dodge that bullet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Bit of a contention point about just one person's really good workmanship.
Yeah. Now, another question is, do you work with any universities or horticultural co-ops?
Yeah. So actually, one of the clocks that I mentioned is a co-op. So the Ontario Flower Growers Cooperative, that's the floriculture clock in Toronto. We also work with a number of the different institutions locally. So there's a couple good ones with really good horticulture programs, but a special shout out to Conestoga College, which we actually worked on their project with them, part of their smart manufacturing division. And we worked with a couple of their software students in conjunction with their mechanical engineering division on a project that's supporting our sales team with some of the automation that we're adding into that component of our management of product from the greenhouse through our sales and cooler and then into customer hands. So it was a really interesting project from that side.
Okay. Yeah. Now, do you do any, well, you say your sales team, do they sell to other greenhouses or to other wholesalers or
to wholesale distributors primarily, and then they work with the sales team at the clock, and then small scale realtors can retail shops can reach out to us, but we primarily want to do those larger volume shares, working with over 70 trusted wholesale partners here in Ontario and into some of the other jurisdictions I talked about, Quebec and the northeastern states.
Yeah. And everything is sold in buckets, eh? Just buckets and buckets of flowers.
Yeah, it's another component to that quality control. So if we can ensure that our product is continually in that cold chain as well as it's sold in water, so that it's consistently in water, then it looks and it survives better than comparables.
I have them in a vase instead of a bucket.
Yes, yeah, but still in water, I hope.
Yes,
absolutely. Yep. How many cycles of crops would you get in a year?
Yeah. So the chrysanthemums, they're pushing pretty aggressively. We're at about 4.8 to 5 crops a year, depending on how aggressive we can get with the turnaround. But chrysanthemums are quite reliably 5 crops a year. The Lisianthus, we're still playing with how efficient we can make this facility operate. But in the past, we were at 3 crops a year, so significantly less.
So that's 5 crops per house, right?
So 5 crops per square foot of ground in the greenhouse in Burford. And then we're currently at 3.5 in Fairfield, which is an improvement from what we used to do. and we're targeting to get all the way up to 4.5. And that's just with some of the increased heating and increased mechanical capabilities, including lighting that we have in this new farm.
So each of those 12 houses, right? No, 20 houses at Fairfield.
Yeah.
Each of those produces a crop every 12 weeks, right?
Roughly. Yeah.
Okay. So
So
12 times 20 is
So we can effectively get 4.5 crops if we're all cylinders firing all the time. With some of the issues we've had in the last couple of years, we haven't really hit that target, but we're still pushing to get there for sure.
Yeah. So basically it's 4.5 times the 20 houses.
Yeah.
So you're looking at So you're looking at 100 crops.
You also want to consider some of the seasonal opportunities. So I'm seeing some of the questions about Mother's Day, May 12th, everyone, although we'll be busy a week out from that as we get the product out to the florist so they can have it ready for you to pick up on the 11th for celebrations with your special women in your life and mothers in your life. So we would be working within that cycle of trying to maximize efficiency within the greenhouse, but also time things to hit those seasonal peaks. So we have a steady amount of product that we want to have all the time for sort of general sales. And then we would have these peak sales that would come at, say, just a little bit before Christmas, just a little bit before Valentine's Day, a lot going into Easter and Mother's Day. So there is a little bit of manipulation to that, which is why we can't, say it's a strict this many cycles, because we want to be not only ensuring that we've got that general production, but that we're also capitalizing on the market return of those special seasonal peaks.
Yeah, you've got the June, July wedding peak.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
That's going on. So. Yeah. Oh, good stuff. We budget for an hour. We're at an hour and 20 minutes already.
That went by really fast.
But it was packed full of information. And again,
the drone show was very entertaining, and that's not to say the drone shows are entertaining either.
No, it was good. I think everybody learned a little bit. I see Johnny Drone Flyers here late, but he's here, and Jack Lake Pilot's here, and so we've had a good crowd of people come through, and it seems like they liked it, So anyway, thanks so much for coming on, and thanks so much for letting me be part of the project. And we'll keep in touch.
Yeah. Well, we did offer free flowers for life for you, so stop in anytime.
I shouldn't have charged him so much for that vase then.
Excuse me. Let me see if I can.
And then if there are any, burning questions later, Gary knows how to get in touch with us, or pick up a fantastic bouquet of flowers and say a little bit about floriculture, at least here in Canada.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to see if I can figure out how to share the screen now for the outro, and stick around and we'll have a little conversation after the outro, after we go off. So
there we go. All right.
Let's see.
Thanks, everyone.